Hi, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Illinois Channel. We are going to be talking today about the significance of regional airports and the impact of the airlines on local economies. And where are we now as we come out of, hopefully coming out of the COVID pandemic? And joining us is Mark Hanna. Mark, thank you for joining us on the Illinois Channel. You are the Executive Director of the Springfield Regional Airport, and we wanted to catch up with you. Let's just start with the broad picture. Give us, if you will, what should we be knowing about what's happening in the airport industry right now, and especially as it impacts some of the regional airports as the Springfield Airport?
Right. As we leave 2020, we see TSA throughputs still be 60% down of what they were compared to 2019. So there's still a lot of work to do, and certainly there are some spikes through the holidays, but we're kind of settling back down to around that 40% of the previous year's throughput of passengers through airports, meaning that across a wide range of airports at the macro level, I mean, throughout the country, we're still down 60% of where we ought to be at this point in time. So as it relates to Springfield, we ended the year just slightly over 50% down. And a lot of what kind of helped us kind of maintain at or maybe slightly above the industry average is a lot of our leisure travelers to the Florida market. Certainly, we've got the three airlines, Allegiant, American Airlines, and United. Certainly, the across the board, the four, well, actually all airlines, but a lot of the network carriers, the four major network carriers that the nation has, and as the industry calls, the legacy carriers, Southwest, American, United, and Delta, certainly took some massive hits. And now we're coming up upon about that 1 year mark where we started to see that decrease in passengers. If you recall where we were about a year ago, just a week or two before the St. Patrick's Day holiday, or the St. Patrick's Day. So we're right up about to where we were last year, where this whole situation started. So for us,
in terms of passengers traveling, you're kind of back to where we were about a year ago.
No, just in thinking about where we were as an industry and society about a year ago, as far as on the getting ready, or now we're going to where we were about a year ago as far as comparing passenger numbers. So think about where we were a year ago with with a pandemic upon us, not knowing exactly what the next few weeks or the next few months we're going to have in store for us. So where we're at now, we're coming off here locally, and I think this is probably a similar trend for other Illinois and Midwest airports as well, is just we're slightly above possibly where we were or where other airports were during the low period from March 2020 to February of 2021. Certainly, the low point in the industry was April, but we're finally at a point to where we are at the highest mark in passenger activity through the airport in February as compared to last April, through the end of February 21. So what I'm saying is there's a little bit of optimism. However, there's still a lot of anxiety and unknown as far as where business travel demand is going to go, and how far and how long can the leisure demand sustain itself, as prices continue to be somewhat suppressed in order to entice further demand and activity on the airlines to keep cash flow moving until a lot of business demand can return back to the marketplace.
Let me ask on Springfield, a couple of questions on the Springfield. How much of your travel is business related versus tourism related, and to what extent is Springfield representative of the regional airports around the state?
It's very difficult for really any airline to, or any airport to really carve out what's tourism or business. What we can possibly, to maybe get to that point is what's leisure versus business travel, and it's very difficult for us to carve out amongst the two airlines that we have, American and Delta, or American and United, as far as what amount of passengers are, leisure or business on those aircraft. I guess we can look at the origin and destination of where those people are flying.
Yeah, because you don't ask people, why are you traveling, so you don't take those numbers. Now, I would say the regional airports, and certainly with Springfield, you have, as we're talking about, the commercial airlines coming in, travel, but you also have private jets coming in, right? Business jets and we had done an earlier story, and one thing, a couple of months ago, I think we interviewed you. I was, one of the things you said that struck me was that a number of people that fly in are business leaders checking on their local businesses, like they might have a manufacturing plant in Springfield, and that they don't even necessarily leave the airport. They have a business meeting at the airport, and then they go on maybe to look at another plant in Oklahoma or Arkansas or something. And that's something that I never thought of, and I imagine a lot of us never thought of, which goes to the part of the economic importance of the regional airports to a local economy. Do you have any numbers on how valuable is the Springfield Airport to the local economy?
Yeah, based on a study that the Illinois Department of Transportation and the Division of Aeronautics conducted in 2012, Springfield returns an annual economic impact to the local community of just over $560 million. That's over $500 million back into the local economy. And as you rate that, or as this was rated at the time that study was commissioned and put out for public consumption, Springfield was the fourth largest airport in Illinois as far as returning economic impact back to the community. Of course, you have Chicago, O'Hare, Midway, and then Rockford, with a lot in growing cargo business. And then it was fourth was Springfield. Springfield was the fourth largest commercial airport return economic impact to the local economy. And this last year, in 2019, IDOT, Division of Aeronautics, has also commissioned a system, an airport system update, and also an economic impact update of airports as well. So we've been through the process for the last year and a half with IDOT and Division of Aeronautics as far as trying to help them with the data and getting all of that compiled, and they have an independent group that is actually compiling that. So hopefully within the upcoming months we'll have an update to that 2012, and we'll see how we fit in at that time as well. But certainly across the board there's significant impacts that airports, whether or not you're talking Peoria, Bloomington, Quad Cities, downtown St. Louis Airport, Marion, Quincy, Decatur, Springfield, we all have very large impacts to the local community as far as a value, but also there's also that value that we don't really think about when we're sitting at home. People that need to get to Illinois or need to get to a Springfield or Decatur, Champaign, there's people that are outside looking in at our community trying to find out how can I get in there as well. So there's an impact there that to be able to have access to a worldwide economy, and that is why it's so critical that we maintain access to the major hubs with the major network carriers to places like Chicago, Dallas. There's some airports in Illinois, Central Illinois, have service to Atlanta, a big Delta hub as well. So for our region and downstate to have access to those major hubs with global connections is absolutely critical for those businesses. And as you say, business leaders, they may fly in on a private aircraft, private jet, meet staff at the airport, have a face-to-face meeting, possibly go into town and visit a property or review an operation, but it allows them a quick review and a meeting and get out and on to the next business meeting or the next appointment that they may have. So it's so important also, in addition to the commercial air service connectivity, to also have that general aviation and the business aviation amenities to be able to receive those people and provide them the assets and the tools, meeting space, connectivity as far as internet, and ground transportation to where they need to go in town. So it's just another critical, and sometimes it's an overlooked aspect of transportation that many people really don't seem to think about.
Yeah.
Because not every town has a headquarters. The headquarters are, maybe in LA, Houston, New York, and they need to move around and visit properties and staff and things like that. So
and we see like Amazon, it might be headquartered out in the state of Washington, or the second one, where is it, in Virginia, I think now, or something. But the point is, they have plants all over the country. And if someone needs to come in and look at the plant, and whether it's Amazon or any other, business enterprise, they need to, and they may well up, in a place like Springfield, the operating cost is going to be a lot less than in an LA area, for a variety of probably obvious reasons. But they still need to be able to have access to going to visit those plants and touch base with the plant manager if you're a regional vice president or something. Hey, let's talk about just tourism travel for a moment, because a lot of times I think people tend to overlook the fact that like Springfield is there, and you briefly touched on flights to Florida. I think sometimes people are going out of their way to drive to places like St. Louis or Indianapolis or Chicago, when Springfield, I believe, still has direct flights to Florida, does it not?
Yeah, correct. Allegiant Airlines has been operating to Punta Gorda, Florida since 2012, and it's been a very popular destination for folks in our area and across the region. So there's just an affinity for people that in this area that like that Gulf Coast and are attracted to that Gulf Coast area, from Naples, all the way on up to the Sarasota area. So that Fort Myers Punta Gorda Airport is perfectly situated to provide access to that whole Gulf Coast destination for folks in and around the Springfield area. So right now we're seeing that is a very popular route right now, as you're starting to see, with the COVID concerns, people managing the risk of travel because of the various reasons, or maybe second home ownership or visiting friends and family. In the industry, they're calling it a lot of VFR travel, visiting family, relatives, friends and relatives. So you're starting to see a lot of people that are off or working remotely, managing the risk of the virus and actually trying to utilize those services. And we're starting to see load factors, that's percentage of the seats filled on an aircraft. Now, these are full-size mainline aircraft. These are Airbus 320, 188-seat aircraft. And we're starting to see load factors in the 80% or more percentages of people flying out and using that service. And as such, the airline has modified its supply or the frequency of flights as they've had in the past. But they've actually added, I believe, an extra flight this year. In the past, they ran about maybe 3 flights during the high season of spring break. They're running 4 flights a week now, from mid-February to the early part of April, just to satisfy that demand. So, people are taking advantage of that. And then, on the flip side, we're still working with United Airlines to bring back frequency as they feel comfortable, with the business travel and demand coming back in that sector. And then we did see American Airlines jump back into the market after a short hiatus late in the fourth quarter to reinstitute that the flights, the very popular flights we've had down to Dallas-Fort Worth. And we are seeing a lot of folks, I think, take advantage. As we mentioned earlier, it's very difficult to pinpoint a traveler as a tourism, leisure, or business travel unless we survey each and every passenger. But we're starting to see that those flights and the passengers flow over Dallas, connecting to a lot of leisure destinations.
I don't know, but do you have any international flights?
No.
No. And the one thing, while the cost, I was tempted to say what's the cost, but by the time, a week from now, the cost for traveling to Dallas or Florida could be different because it varies all the time. But one thing that doesn't, and I'll point out for the viewers, one thing that does not change is when you go to a place like Lambert Field in St. Louis or up in Chicago and you pay for parking, if you're going down to Florida for a week's vacation or visit family or whatever, you're going to be paying for that parking. You can end up paying, $100 just to park your car for a week. And at Springfield, there's no charge for parking. So right there, when you're looking at the cost of travel, it's not just the ticket price. You got to look at the convenience of going to the local airport if you're certainly in Springfield rather than driving 3 hours to Chicago. But again, the cost of parking right there. Which I think is quite an advantage, but one that I wanted to mention because I think it's often overlooked. That's a fixed cost savings.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that we have done for a very long time in Springfield. Shoot, it's probably been close to nearly 15 to 20 years that we have offered the free parking out of Springfield. There are a few other airports that do offer that as well, and it's a great amenity for the passenger. And as hard as we work with the airlines as far as schedule and network connectivity and frequency, with the services in Springfield, we are also working when we can with their revenue management people as well. We monitor fares and things like that. So we really try to monitor and keep fares in check to where they are reasonably priced in comparison to maybe some of the larger airports, as you mentioned, Indy, St. Louis, Chicago, where we may leak or lose passengers to. So that parking, as they say, is huge. It could be upwards to $10, $15 a day. If you're gone for a week, that adds up awfully fast. And on our website, FLY SPI, flyspy.com, we do have a cost calculator where you can input, if you're shopping for airfares, you can put in the airfares from the various airports you're looking at, and also the mileage, and then also the parking costs to really get your true cost of that ticket, and so you can really make a good informed financial decision and economic decision on your travel choices.
Say that I was going to ask you for the website, and was it flyspy.com? SPI.
Yeah, SPI. SPI is our airport identifier. Yeah, right. And there are a number of regional airports too that do offer that, because all the regional airports we leak or as we say in the industry, lose passengers to drive markets when passengers or consumers are always looking for the best price and best deal, and obviously some passengers, they understand, you get what you pay for, as far as, hey, I have less drive, I'm going to maybe pay 20, 40, 60, maybe $100 more a ticket. And some people are very price sensitive, where they will drive to save that $20, especially if there's a large party, that is traveling together. Certainly there could be some good cost savings there, but you really need to look and drill it down to how much are you really spending with driving and extra meals and the time at the terminal.
Yeah, and I've flown out of Springfield, and I've flown out of Lambert. Springfield, just being, for those who may watch us around the state, we're about a 90-minute drive to Lambert Field in St. Louis. But when you get there, you got to park your car, and I've talked about that, and you're going to be paying whatever you're paying. But then you got to catch a bus, and then you got to take the bus to whatever terminal. And when you get off, you got to go to the carousel, and the hassle factor is not necessarily an economic factor, but it's just a hassle, and it might easily take you another half an hour to get in there, go through all the security. You know, you gotta, and all of that, and people can imagine. Whereas Springfield, and I'm sorry I don't have video right now of your terminal, but you walk in, it's like going home. I mean, you know, you just there's a handful of people there. You just walk up to the counter, you're in and out. You walk out to the airplane, you get right on, and it's a no hassle airport. And I haven't flown out of other regional airports to compare, but that's certainly another factor, just as far as, you know, so many times travel is just a hassle, and I don't want to deal with the hassle a lot of times, you know. I mean, if it's cost comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here we like to, you know, tell passengers at least an hour ahead of time. The airlines will shut off the check-in. They may be there behind the counter. You may be there, you know, 15 minutes before departure, but the computers will actually shut off. A lot of times there's nothing that the ticket agent or the customer service representative can really do to check you in. So especially if you have to check a bag. So 45 minutes is the absolute cutoff to check in if you're going to check in person. A lot of people now online or on a mobile app are checking in, which is great. However, if you are checking a bag, you know, we do ask people that 45 minutes is a cutoff period. So at least try to be at the airport here in Springfield or a lot of the other regional airports an hour and 15 minutes in advance, so you're still able to check that bag if you are. And like you said, you know, when you go to another airport, a larger airport, you do your backwards planning, and you may want to have half hour to an hour dwell time at that gate area just to kind of give you a little bit of a leeway, you know, if there's a delay one way or another. And like you say, you have to go through the security, you have to take the transportation, you know, to and from a remote lot into the terminal and check in your bag. So, you know, not to mention the 2+ hour drive it is to get there. So, and that's round trip. So you take that all in consideration. We kind of joke around here, is like, hey, you park in the free lot, trip over the curb, check a bag, and, you know, roll up on the aircraft on the boarding bridge. And it's super simple in Springfield. So we do get a lot of people that are frequent flyers, and I know this is the same for a lot of other regional airports across the state as well, especially here in Springfield. We are so close to downtown, and to a lot of the residential, you know, access to a lot of residential areas in the area. So it's super easy to get to. So people that are coming in from a long business trip or a long vacation, we hear it time and time again how thankful people are. Hey, they can get off the plane, grab their bag, get in a car, and they're 15-20 minutes from home. And it's just, when you're home, you're home. You don't have to, you know, walk through a big terminal, pick up a bag, fight the baggage carrier, airport, transportation to a remote lot, and then a 2+ hour drive home. So it is convenient, and certainly we've been really pushing, you know, just like shop local, dine local, take carry out, you know, and support local restaurants, and more people that choose to fly out of Springfield versus an alternative line, and talk about added frequency, upgauging aircraft or new routes. So the more that the airlines see an upward trend in local passenger traffic, in sustaining that, they're more apt to actually take on a little bit more risk and provide you, you know, enhanced services down the line.
Yeah, that's all important stuff. And one thing before we leave the topic, how many regional airports are there in Illinois? You know? I didn't know if you knew offhand. You had mentioned, I think you said Bloomington was one. I think Decatur has a regional, or has an airport. Or am I misusing the term? I don't know to what you count as a regional airport.
There's about nine. When you look outside of as far as the regional airports in Illinois, when you look outside of Chicago O'Hare and Midway, as far as regional airports with you know, what we consider regional air service, you have Rockford, Illinois, the Quad Cities, Peoria, Bloomington, Springfield, Champaign, and then you have Quincy, Decatur, and Marion, Illinois, and then also an up-and-coming airport down in Belleville, the Mid-America Airport that had been dormant for a number of years, has really sprung to life with Allegiant Airlines, and they're accessing the the 2+ million market that is available in the St. Louis area. So that kind of rounds out the regional airports outside of the two major hubs that are up in the Chicagoland.
When we right now, we had talked a little bit about Florida, and did you say, and I just wanted to clarify, how many flights do you currently have to Florida, and did you say you're going to be adding more, or more have been added?
In previous years, generally speaking, we have 2 flights a week, and in previous years they have added a flight throughout the week during certain holiday times or spring break. Actually flying 4 times a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday, Saturdays, and they've added that frequency with larger aircraft from early mid-February into the first week or 2 of April. So they have added a frequency with their weekly schedule, and then once they move past that second week or so of April, they'll go back into what we'll call ordinary time with their 2-flight-a-week package. So that it is nice to see when they're adding service during times of the year where they're seeing demand peak, and that's a flexibility that Allegiant has had, and it's part of their operating model that they choose when they can to own their aircraft. They can park their aircraft when they don't need to be flying. Like a lot of leisure travelers aren't flying on a Tuesday, as an example, so a lot of times they'll park planes. So if you look at a lot of their schedule, they'll fly Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then maybe a Monday or a Wednesday or something like that. But in some of those off days, they can park them and not worry about, hey, I'm having to pay at the bank but not generating revenue. So they really have worked in a lot of flexibility in their schedule. So certainly we continue a conversation with them about further access into the Florida market, also out west of Vegas and
that'd be good.
Phoenix are also Phoenix and the Vegas area are certainly popular destinations for us. So we're also seeing some growth in the Panhandle down in Florida, down in Destin, Fort Walton Beach area as well. So there are a lot of things that we talk about with the airlines when we have a discussion with them about passengers daily each way, the fares that people are paying, where certain destinations are ranked with the current passengers flying out of Springfield, and also the current passenger loads that are flying out of the area, but not necessarily from Springfield. We talked about the leakage or the lost passenger. Right. So we try to drill down and really show the airlines, hey, this is the market, and this is what people are paying. And then one thing that we really have done here in recent years is sharpen our pencil as far as our operating costs in Springfield. We have very low operating costs for the airlines. So when it comes to that time where they have to make a decision, when they're done with their modeling, revenue, and their cost side of the equation, then they start looking at the airport costs. And we have our own, what we call a passenger service center or passenger services department. So when you fly out of Springfield on Allegiant and or American, those are airport authority staff and personnel that are taking the tickets, loading the planes, managing the baggage, and marshaling the aircraft in and out of the gate space. So we are able to control the airline for, as you see there, the ground handling services in controllable costs. So we can help them with some of that initial financial risk if they're right on the edge of making a decision to fly a new route or not. But certainly everything has to be realigned. And I'm not sure if we mentioned this earlier, but in looking at air service development and maybe some things that have gone on in the industry in 2019 and throughout 2020, there's a lot of things. If you scratch the surface a little bit deeper than COVID, if you recall back some of the problems that the airlines had with the Boeing 737 MAX aircraft, a lot of that situation has worked its way out through the system, and airlines are now bringing those 737 MAX aircraft back into their fleets, and they're placing more orders with Boeing for that aircraft type. And why is that important to Springfield? It means that, when we get back to normal, they were parking those 737 MAXs, and in some cases, a lot of those airlines were squeezed for aircraft availability, and they were maybe having to move maybe some of the larger regional jets to backfill some of the 737 MAX flying schedules, which really maybe put the squeeze on the availability of regional aircraft that they had to fly the regional markets. MAX is back up and flying back in the schedules. It's going to hopefully alleviate a little bit of pressure on the demand for those regional aircraft that fly into cities such as Springfield. So we were talking about the 50, the 60, 70 seat aircraft. So that is a good thing, especially now with another news blip, is that you're starting to see the Canada Air regional jet. It's a Canadian-built aircraft. Many of your listeners or viewers have flown on a CR 200. It's been the mainstay of a regional jet flying for a number of years, and also future generations, the CR 700 and the 900, the 60 and the 70 seat aircraft. That aircraft manufacturer just recently stopped building those aircraft altogether. So and then there are not a lot of new regional jet platforms coming online. So again, what does that mean for a Springfield or some of the smaller, more regional airports? It means that the competition for aircraft time, when we go and meet with an airline face to face, we show them our market, we show them a potential destination and a potential profit margin. We're not competing just regionally amongst, Quad Cities, Peoria, Bloomington, Springfield, Champaign. We compete nationally, with Syracuse in New York, Asheville, North Carolina, Boise, Idaho, Albuquerque, New Mexico for aircraft time. So when we meet with them, they have airports from across the country that are meeting for the same reasons. They want more frequency, they want more larger aircraft and more destinations. So we really need to be able to prove that we have a better market, not necessarily from maybe what we think is a competing airport in Central Illinois or downstate, but across the country. So we really need to be able to come to them with a very hard business case that is backed up with some very good data.
Let me ask before we run out of time here, Mark. For one thing, I think you've made a good case, and just right there on the economic impact, as you said earlier, that $500 million a year just in the Springfield local economy. And certainly going forward, as any community wants to grow and attract businesses, you have to have access to that marketplace. This is the kind of story I would say for the viewers that, it's not news in the traditional sense that there was a house fire or a car accident or someone being murdered. But this is the kind of story that we in the news business don't cover enough. And it's the big story behind a community that we need to cover, and why we want to be talking to Mark Hanna about these regional airports, because this is the exact kind of thing that you may, if we didn't have a regional airport, you might be losing your job. If we don't have a regional airport, we can't attract the next business that wants to build a new factory here and hire 1,000 people. So these issues are critical. I should have said that off the top, perhaps.
Yeah.
Before we close out, one thing that is in the news right now as we tape this is the Congress is debating the so-called recovery, or I forget what title they're giving it to it, but there's some money on the table coming from the feds. I just didn't know. Do you have any money that might be passing in that, or if not just for Springfield, for regional airports? It just struck me that maybe we should at least mention that.
Yeah, maybe to fill in a little bit of context with that too, I guess for lack of better words, I'm just calling it CARES 3. We go back to last year, CARES Act 1. Our airport at Springfield, we were the recipient of some $4.6 million. And then there was a CARES Act, or second CARES Act, that was signed late in December. And with that, we were just over $1 million, $1.2 million that we are in line to receive from that legislation. We're not exactly sure how much the breakdown just is yet for what we'll call CARES Act 3 or this $1.9 trillion package that's currently being considered. But that has certainly been helpful for us to maintain payroll, debt service, operational costs. But another thing that we've also been able to take advantage of, and this is key as it relates to the airlines as well, as the payroll support program. They set up a separate payroll support program for the aviation industry, for airlines, cargo operators, and contractors. And the Springfield Airport was able to qualify to receive some of those funds because we are a contractor to the carrier, as we talked about. We do the ground handling services for American and Allegiant. So we did receive just over $200,000 from that first package that expired in September 30th, and then we also have application, and that hasn't been determined just yet, for the CARES Act 2 that was passed in December, that carries the industry through the end of this month, March 31st. And those are the same programs that the main airlines, a lot of the major airlines, are taking advantage of. And part of that, they also had the opportunity to take out loans from the Treasury to provide cash flow as well. So yes, airports will, we probably will not know the breakdown of this CARES Act 3 until it's passed and the FAA has been able to put the formula to the appropriation. But it is critical for the airline industry. Airlines are really looking at what's going to happen in the next week or two, because April 1st, there is a number of looming suggested and potential furloughs that a lot of the network carriers are discussing right now. And it's been made public that if this $1.9 trillion, what we'll call CARES Act 3 for the conversation, does not pass, we're going back to where we were September 30th, toward the end of 2020, and trying to get that propped up again from October 1st to March 31st. So this next round, this CARES 3, we're hoping is going to actually take the industry, the airline industry, and provide funding for airports for operational, debt service, payroll, things of that nature, from April 1st to the end of the federal fiscal year, September 30th. So there's a lot at stake for airports. I know that there's a lot of other political items or things being discussed with that. However, as it relates just to the airline industry and airports, it's critical that these airlines continue to fly and sustain their operations, because it'll be very difficult if they continue to shut more down and furlough people. When that business demand does come back, it's going to be awfully difficult for them to turn the switch back on. And there are a number of things that are being considered also as well, with talk about the vaccines, the continuing pilot and mechanic shortage with business demand coming back on. They're going to need to fly, going back to pre-COVID problems that they had with pilots and mechanic shortages, and also the cost of fuel has been discussed as well as a prohibitive cost that may be spiking here as they're looking for relief and recovery out of the COVID phase.
Let's do this. Like I say for the viewers, this is the kind of thing where you don't even know that you have a dog in the fight, as they say in Texas. That when you're passing this $1.9 trillion bill, there's a lot of controversy in that. But one part of it that I think both sides agree with is the infrastructure part. We'd like to build up the nation's infrastructure. That's a lot of things, but it also includes our airports, our regional airports. And obviously we don't want to go back to just having to drive places. I mean, airline travel, as we've laid out, and I think is obvious, is so critical. And again, this is why we want to bring this story to our viewers, because this is the big stories that often are not breaking news, but they're significant, and we need to know what's at stake for us. I know, Mark, we apologize for keeping you so long. You're a good guy, because as people may have seen, you're getting over a bad cold, and so you've done pretty well not having to cough for a while. Let's do this. We would like to follow up with you in the weeks and months ahead, and there's so many other aspects of the story, but I think we've given people at least a pretty good overview that we can maybe say goodbye for now, but thank you for your time. If you have any last word, otherwise we'll say goodbye and catch up with you in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Terry, and I appreciate the opportunity to kind of tell the story and kind of, peel back a layer of that onion and really kind of dig deep as far as what these airports and maybe, what this means to Springfield and what the regional airports means to other communities across the great state of Illinois. So in moving forward, you hit it right on the head as far as infrastructure. We're lockstep with others in the transportation industry, whether or not they're building rail. Our township road commissioners out there working every day, or the county engineers, the city public works in the cities across the state and the country are working to maintain and grow and improve their infrastructure. And it's a lot more expensive and a lot more complicated now to pave a mile or runway or county road or highway than it was just a few years ago. And with constrained resources, escalating costs, fuel pricing, things like that, it's continued to put challenges on the entire transportation industry. So we're keenly interested, and I would say that any airport manager at any size airport, small, big or large across the country, they have projects that they're waiting on funding for, and they're good projects that enhance air service, and they may enhance, fix a ramp that is needed at a small airport to accommodate a business jet that's bringing someone in to check on a factory or a large business concern in an area. So it's 1 mile of runway can get you nearly anywhere in the world. A mile of highway, as we say in the industry, gets you at 1 mile. So
that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. But certainly there's a lot of need out there, and certainly we have great advocates in Washington with our trade groups, and certainly here in Illinois as well. And we understand that there are certainly a lot of demands on the purse strings and in the various budgets.
Well, on the other hand, we don't want to wake up one day and find out why is that bridge not rebuilt, or how come the bridge is out, how come our airport closed down, how come the trains don't run, or whatever. Keeping the infrastructure of the nation up is critical to the forward move of the economy. These are not luxuries; these are necessities. But Mark, thank you again for joining us, and we'll follow up with you again in the near future.
Thank you so much, Terry. I look forward to it.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.